Mark. It's Brady.
The person taking the pictures drives a black sedan. Commissioner, what color is your sedan? What color? Oh, not sedan. Sorry, SUV. What is SUV?
It's champagne.
It's okay, you're eliminated. You're free to go.
That's my official time.
I heard.
Good evening, everyone. I now call to order the budget work session of the Board of Commissioners of the City of Tarpon Springs on Tuesday, July 25th, 2018, at 6:30 p.m. Roll call, please.
Mayor Alahouzes,
Here.
Vice Mayor Banther, Commissioner Sieber,
Here.
Commissioner Kikta,
Here.
Commissioner Carr.
Announcement. The purpose for tonight's meeting is for the Board of Commissioners to study issues, to gather and to analyze information, and to clarify questions. No votes are conducted during the work session. No public comments will be allowed tonight on this budget. However, will be allowed during the two public hearings that are scheduled for Wednesday, September 5th, 2018, and Tuesday, September 18, 2018, at 6:30 p.m. Item number 1, General Fund Budget, the Enterprise Fund, and the CIP discussion. Mr. Liqueurs and Mr. Harry, you ready for the presentation?
Yeah, we're going to start off with a presentation from Mr. Herring as an overview of the whole budget.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. Ron Herring, Finance Director. As you probably know, on June 22nd, you've got the executive summary book where we try to summarize everything in the actual proposed budget book. I know we like paper in finance, so we have this nice 3-inch binder of paper here. That's the detailed budget book, but I'll go into a brief presentation here of the different funds in the city of Tarpon Springs. First, I just want to go back to a little bit brief history. In March 2018, the department started entering their budget. In April, Finance compiles the budget document with the expenditure requests and revenue projections. May 17th, 24th, and 31st, the Budget Advisory Committee met with departments and went through their budgets, spending about 2 hours each session, so I know they spent numerous hours with all the departments going over their budgets. June 22nd, the budget books were provided to the commissioners, and July 25th, 2018, we're here for the first budget workshop, or maybe the only one. Just starting out with a summary of the total city. The total city proposed budget is $57.9 million. It's an increase of $1.8 million, or 3.27% over last year's approved budget. And I'd like to show the major funds, the 5 largest funds. General Fund is $24.9 million. Water and Sewer Fund, $17.9 million. Sanitation, $5 million. Penny Fund, $2.4 million. Stormwater Fund, $1.5 million, for a total of almost $52 million. Those 5 funds make up 90% of the total city budget. And down below, I like to show the capital that's part of the budget. The capital improvement projects and capital outlay, $9.5 million. That's 16% of the budget. Water and sewer is a majority of that at $5 million. Capital projects funds $2.6 million, and the balance is in some other funds, a total of $1.8 million, for a total of $9.5 million in capital projects. And just to, I know I mentioned the 5 funds up there, but if you wanted to know where some of the other funds are, they're in total in the executive summary. They're on page 22, which shows all the individual funds and their balances. And just some of the budget assumptions in the budget book here. All funds are balanced. The general fund is balanced without using any unassigned fund balance. Property taxes certified by the property appraiser on July 1st. Citywide, it's a 6.72% increase, which includes a CRA. The CRA alone, it's a 10.23% increase. The millage rate is unchanged at 5.42. The increase for the general fund is $543,000. For the CRA fund, $42,000. And total revenues budgeted in the general fund is $9.2 million, and in the CRA fund, $249,000, for a total of $9,455,000 from the property taxes. Some of the assumptions going into the budget here, a lot of the expenditure ones. Salary increase with benefits, total $713,000. Police union increases are $89,000. Fire union increases $112,000. General fund is funded at 3.5% for a total of $511,000. Health, dental, and life insurance, we originally estimated 10%. for a total of $332,000. We have since got an update, as written below there. Health is coming in at 6%, dental 0%, and life is still estimated at 10% because we don't have the final numbers yet, for a total increase of $192,948 and a decrease of $139,000 under the $332,000 we originally budgeted. Workers' comp, we don't know the final numbers yet, but we've got a 10% increase in there of $57,000. Property insurance, we don't have the final numbers yet, but we got a 10% budgeted for an increase of $58,000. Retirement accounts funded per the actuary requirements. Police, we're at 11.86%, which is an increase of $104,000. We have an update that it might go to 14% because there might be an additional benefit, 100% death benefit, which will cost roughly about $46,000. So that would make the total increase $151,000. Fire, funding it at $833,598. It's an increase of $87,000 over last year. And general employees, we're still budgeting the same 8.7%. The total of the above assumptions is $1,353,000. With the updated numbers, total comes to $1,261,000, a decrease of $92,604. New positions in the budget. Well, there's two new police officers, but they're approved this year during the fiscal year 2018, and they're funded by the Pinellas County School District. Like I say, there's none new positions in the budget, but possibly there's going to be a part-time position in the city clerk's office changed to a full-time position. That will be brought forward next month with the salary changes. Going into the general fund. A total budget proposed is $24.9 million, an increase of almost $1.2 million over last year's, a 5% increase. As I mentioned before, no unassigned fund balance is being used to balance the general fund. Some of the similar assumptions from the previous screen, but the general fund portion, but the police is all in the general fund. So police union increases $89,000, the fire union $112,000. The general employees in the general fund for the 3.5% funded comes to $319,000. Two new police officer, which the SRO was $151,000. Health, dental, and life insurance at the 10% was $220,000, which there's an update down below saying the amount will decrease to $88,000 because of the 6% health insurance. Workers' comp at 10%, $39,000, and there's a land development code rewrite in the budget for $75,000. And the police and fire pension funding increases total about $192,224, and those are the $1.2 million of increases in the expenditures in the general fund. Revenues to offset those expenditure increases. The property tax value is at 6.72%, $543,000. We're adjusting the interfund transfers from the enterprise funds to 7% from 6%. That's $295,000. School resource officer funding increase. It's going up to $348,000. I think it's been $145,000 in the past. Transfer from the EBCD is the Employee Benefit Cost Deferral Fund, which is a fund set aside just for insurance increases for general employees. We're using that money to help offset the general fund employees for the health insurance, but that'll decrease since we're not going to be using the 10%, it'll be down to the 6%. Health insurance reserve, other police, fire, and the $99,000. We have a reserve within the general fund set aside. It's money from refunds that built up over the last 15, 20 years. So we're using that for the other portion for the police and fire increases of $99,000. Other revenue changes net is a $61,811, and that's a mix of, we have like 150 revenue items in the general fund, but that's just netting it out to the $1.2 million of increases, the revenue increases to offset the expenditure increases. The general fund major revenue source, oh, I'm sorry, I just went over that. Oh, there we go. Sorry, technical difficulties here. I'm computer challenged. I'd like to show this slide of the general fund expenditures. Up top it shows the 2018 and compares it to 2019 and what the major increase is. As the highlighted in yellow on the side is personnel is the largest increase at $1.1 million. And down below, I like to show that of the general fund for the current year, 74% of the expenses is personnel. Next slide is showing the taxes, and it's showing that going from 2018 to 2019, $595,000 increases, taxes in the general fund. Taxes are 54% of the general fund. And down on the bottom, I try to say that's not property taxes, it's property taxes, utility taxes, communication service taxes, and local business taxes. I'd like to show this side here. It just shows the history of it, of the millage rate, the tax values, and the revenues to the city. And as you can see on the far left slide there, it shows the millage rate going from 4.9454 back in 2005. 2008, it dips down to 4.3089. And then in 2011, it goes up to 5.45. And in 2017, it took a little dip down to 5.42, which is maintained at 5.42. Next to it, the taxable values, you can see back in 2005, we were about 1.3 billion. And in 2008, the taxable values went up to 1.9 billion, 338 million, which we still haven't gotten back up to, but we're getting close to there. Dipped down in 2013 to 1.3 billion, about the same as in 2005, and now currently in 2019, we're back up to 1.8 billion. And with the two above, the millage rate and the taxable values, that's what makes up the revenue. So as you can see, the revenues sort of take the similar, roller coaster ride here as the taxable values, where it was 6 million of revenues in 2005, 8.1 million in 2008, dipped down in 2013 to 6.7 million, and then this year what we're budgeting is 9.2 million of revenues in the general fund. I put in this slide this year because of the effects of the third homestead exemption, just trying to show you the effects of it with the property tax values and the revenue that'd be coming into the city. I'm sort of conservative. I based it on a 4% increase in the taxable values. So if you look on the far left graph, the property tax values, you'll see the number highlighted in yellow, the 1.8 billion. That's our current value this year. The blue line going forward is a 4% increase if the exemption, the third homestead exemption, is not passed. The brown line is the taxable values with the increase, but if the homestead exemption is passed. And basically, as mentioned down below, it's about a $90 million exempt taxable values annually that would be less on the taxable values. Graph on the far right, basically the same, showing that in yellow the 9.2 million. If we had a 4% increase going out from 2020 to 2024, we would be in the blue line there. And the brown line is if we get the 4% increase, but then the homestead exemption does pass. And like as mentioned down below, in both of them, like in the graph on the left, the difference is basically the 90 million, and then the graph on the right is the 482,000 we would not be getting each year if that homestead exemption is passed. I went ahead and tried to, thinking of homestead exemption, I projected out the revenues and expenditures this last week for the last 5 years. I didn't want to show all 5 years through 2024, but what I'm basically getting to is the bottom line down there. With a 3% increase, I'm foreseeing that there'll be a budget projection shortfall in 2020 when we're working on the budget of roughly about $795,000. Goes up to about $1,070,000 in 2021. Well, what's contributing to that? Well, the homestead exemption, the $482,000. Some of the little bit smaller things, the hospital amendment, where we're getting in $300,000, but now, we would have been getting in $362,856 based on the original lease, but now it's going to be $300,000. The cell tower, if that passes, but there'll be about $42,991 of revenue less in the general fund. So I just want to point out little things when I'm trying to balance the budget. It's just, okay, I don't have that anymore to balance the budget. So just trying to project out, and with the homestead exemption, mainly what the shortage may be in 2020, unless we get some other revenue sources, expenditures cuts, or going into capital improvement projects. Just trying to list all the capital improvement projects that are, and then they're in the back of the executive summary there on the pages there, but going by type, general government, disaster hall recovery servers, 110,000, city hall building improvements, 40,000, other building improvements, 60,000, public safety, police vehicles, 352,000, self-contained breathing apparatus for the fire department, 300,000. Now, hopefully they did apply for a grant, so we might not need that, but they haven't been turned down yet, so we might get a grant to offset that. Fire staff vehicle, annually we have a fire vehicle replaced, that's a 60,000. The EOC Creston transmitter receiver surface hub, that's for the EOC, the 99,999. Thermal imaging cameras for the fire department, there's 3 of them for 26,000. Station 69 exhaust system, 70,000. Now gone down to transportation, we've got Brick Street and road reconstruction, 150,000. Court Street improvements, 350,000. Annual street paving, 260,000. Annual sidewalks, 90,000. Extend Pinellas Trail at North Anclote, 391,000. That one might be moved out to 2021, but we're not sure yet. 2020. Going on to culture and recreation, we've got Dorset Park field renovations, 80,000. Riverside Field tennis court area improvements, 40,000. Sunset Beach, we have Entranceway improvements, restroom remodel, sidewalks pavilion deck for a total of 145,000. Sizzler Field restroom roof dugout improvements, 94,000. Heritage Museum restaurant office improvements, 33,000. North Anclote entranceway, 10,000. Splash Park parking lot, 5,000. Train depot deck replacement, 25,000. And going down the stormwater, we have Distant Avenue Center Street, 150,000. Stormwater action plan of 258,000. Coburn Drive west of Florida, 39,000. And then we get in the water and sewer, and there's a lot of the water and sewer projects, so I just tried to put a lot of them by the department. Below some, I highlighted some of the larger ones. Like for the water plant, there's 1.7 million, but 1.3 million of it is for new raw water wells. Water supply, 85,000. Water distribution, 1,081,000, includes 500,000 for water pipe valve replacement. Meter changeouts, 125,000. We budget for this annually. It's a new radio read meters. Going into sewer, we have sewage collection, 885,000, which includes 225,000 for manhole sewer lines and 210,000 for Seabreeze engineering. Sewage treatment plant, 720,000. Sewage lift station, 320,000. For total water and sewer of 4.9 million, and total capital improvement projects of 8,150,791. We wanted to show you this slide. It's capital projects. A lot of them are all in the slide you just saw, but this is the penny fund. So this are projects that we're just mentioning, but these are the ones that are in the penny fund. Some, like say, some of the same ones, the city hall, the citywide, the public safety. Like I said, I could go through them, but a lot of the same ones. The public safety, transportation, culture and recreation, for a total of $2,437,000. And then what we're trying to show down at the bottom, there's like $257,671 left in the fund with budgeting for these projects. But like I say, through the Extend Pinellas Trail, the $391,000, that might be moved out a year. And self-contained breathing apparatuses, if we get a grant, well, hopefully we won't need that in there. And I think it's a 10% grant, so we would have to pay a little bit, but it'd be $30,000. This is capital items that were requested, but we took out of the budget.
Let me talk about this page a little bit and explain kind of why I have this page in. These are a variety of things you see on this page. Some of them are not going to go back in the budget. Some of them are ones that we're hoping if we have extra money at the end of this year's budget to use. A few of them may go back. Some of them may go back in the budget. These are just, again, a variety of lists of things that are either not going to be funded, maybe funding depending on the rollover of money, maybe put back into the budget by the time you see the budget again. So it's just a variety of things we put out there. Obviously, what we'll be doing tonight is looking at a list of some things that you have to add to this budget, to add to this page, so we can take them all together and figure what's going into the budget, what's not going into the budget. So this is just our worksheet that will continue on tonight when we talk about the particular items that the commission would like to see in the budget. And you can see some of the things in here. I know at least a few of them are things that you're going to want to make sure you see into this budget. So kind of we'll leave this until we get to the commissioners, because they'll be adding things to this list, and then we'll be deciding when we're going to do them. So we can go to the next one.
Go next slide.
Yeah.
Water and Sewer Fund. Since it's the second biggest fund, I thought we should go into a little detail. The water and sewer, the proposed budget, $17.9 million, an increase of $1.9 million over the, or 11.89% over last year's approved budget. Graph similar to the one in the general fund showing the expenditures, and just trying to show the biggest increase from 2018 to 19 is the capital outlay of $1,148,000. Total capital is $5 million budgeted in the fund. And down on the left side, it shows that of the 2019 budget, 30% is personnel, 23% is operating, and 28% is capital. The other side of it, the revenue to offset that is a main increase, which is charges for services for the user fees of $1.2 million. And it says down below, 95% of the budget to cover that is 95% of the charges for services. The main revenues in the general fund of the fund balance, the fund total of $17,949,000 is water sales, $9.6 million, sewer sales, $6.2 million, and reclaim sales, $407,000, for a total of $16,309,000, and those three totaled 91% of the budget. It's based on the 4% increase. Sanitation fund. A budget of almost $5.1 million, an increase of $119,000 over last year's, a 2.41% increase. The main revenues, sanitation fees, almost $3.9 million, recycling, $560,000, yard waste, $320,000, for a total of $4,763,000. They're 94% of the budget. The rate increase for next year in sanitation is 1.98%. It's based on the CPI per the contract with Waste Management. We are currently in the third year of the 5-year contract with Waste Management, and the city administrative fee is 20%. The expenses out of the sanitation fund is, of course, for the contractor. Solid waste to Waste Management, $3.2 million. Recycling to Waste Management, $440,000, and yard waste to Mother's Organics is $238,000, for a total of $3.9 million. Stormwater fund, a budget of almost $1.6 million. It's a decrease from $658,000 from last year, based on some budgets that are being budgeted that were budgeted last year, but waiting on the grant funding in the coming years. So that was a decrease. Stormwater fund, fifth largest fund at the $1.6 million. It's a stormwater department and the project administration department. Project administration department is also in the water and sewer fund and the general fund. Stormwater fees totaling $1.5 million. The rate for next year will be 7.65 per ESU. It's a 50-cent increase per the ordinances. And the last slide, going forward, August 2nd, second budget workshop if necessary. August 20th, the county mails the trim notices. September 5th, first public hearing on the tentative millage rate and budget. September 18th, second and final public hearing. And then October 1st, the first day of the new fiscal year.
And I do want to note that my recommendation, I don't think we've had a second budget workshop meeting in 2, 3, 4, 5 years or whatever. But what I'm recommending, in case we need it and stuff, that we can add a work session at the end of the meeting, the 7th or the 21st. After we do the regular meeting, there could be if there's any issues we have to come back and discuss, then we can just go straight from the regular session into a work session if we find out tonight afterwards. And that would be my recommendation instead of the second budget. We can talk about that later, because then we can deal. If there's some issues here we got to get back to on, then we can do that. I think that's the same recommendation I made the last 2 years, so.
Ron, you finished.
Excuse me?
And he did it in under a half an hour like he was,
He was right
budget
on.
101 under a half hour.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been directed to keep it short.
Mr. LaCourse, Mr. Herrick, staff, Budget Advisory Committee, I want to thank you all. Congratulations, we have a very good budget, and we appreciate that very much. It is encouraging to see that, if you look at the slide number 3, that our budget has been increased $1.8 million, which is 3.27%. So every year it's getting better and better. And we're still keeping the same millage for the third year in a row, which is 5.42. Mr. LaCourse, I support the increase that you budgeted for the salaries of the employees, 3.5. We need to bring the salaries up to a level where we'll be compatible to the other cities and be so our employees have a very good paycheck going home. But also, by doing that, we're going to keep our people here after we get them trained. As you know, in the past, that didn't work. We train them here, then go into other cities to work. So I'm glad that we're doing that. Slide number 6 shows the new positions that we budgeted. The 2 police officers, which is the SRO, they already been approved. But I'm going to ask the same thing as I did the last time, that we need to have a marketing specialist position to help Karen. Even if it's a part-time, we need to start with that. You and I would discuss that several times, so I think it's very important that we have that to market the city, also to promote the businesses in town, and that will increase the revenue of the city and the businesses.
We'll be talking about that later, yeah.
Okay, but also, I guess the pay scale, you're gonna bring it to us later?
Yes, you want me to go into?
Sure, go ahead.
Yeah. As you know, in the past years, usually the last thing I do on the budget is the pay scale, because obviously I have to look and see what the budget is. So I'm working on that now. I can tell you now, although we proposed an average of 3.5, the majority of raises are going to be 3%, and that's pretty much consistent all throughout the counties that we know now from the other cities. The reason it's 3.5 and what I'm working on now with various department heads is, again, as you see, we're getting to, this will be this budget. We're going to go backwards the next 2 years and have at least 2 years of a tough budget. It's going to be tough these next 2 years. Now, we've been through a lot tougher with the recession when I first became city manager. So we'll deal with it, but it's going to be tough. So why I'm taking a little longer, I really want to look at those lower positions. We spent a lot of years where you've seen those variable raises to try to move the lower ends of our salary up. Right now, I'm trying to, and the schedule is I'm still working on that. I'll be going before the Budget Advisory Committee on August 9th and bringing it to them, and then I'll be bringing it to you as I usually do, because we go to a regular meeting and bring salary stuff on the 16th. I'll be bringing it to you. But the thing I'm looking at now, right now, as I look at it, we're probably going to lose grade 4 and grade 5, only because grade 6 will be starting a couple pennies under 12 an hour, and I want to make sure, we've been talking about reaching the point where the lowest paid would be $12 an hour, and we can reach it this year. But to do that, I'm probably eliminating grades 4 and 5. I'm looking at grade 6, probably up to 11 and 12, to see where they are, where the low-paid employees are in there, to move them up so we don't have compression. So we're dealing with a lot of things. We're dealing with compression, but I can guarantee you none of it's at the top end of the salaries. It's all at the lower end, and to try to work on moving up, if we've heard, to the living wage and they've had some good increases as you see the lower pay scale over the last 3 or 4 years with those graduated. I want to try to be close to finishing off. We'll still have some we'll need to do next year. So the main thing you're going to see in budgets, you're going to see that I think there's only one major reorganization. Diane Wood in Cultural Affairs has had her first year in. It's a pretty major reorganization, and in that is part of the piece we'll discuss a little bit later, but mostly we'll discuss when we get to the salaries about some abilities with her reorganization to combine her department and resources of marketing to deal with what we've heard from the commissioning and increase in marketing for the city. I think there may be a way to do that. Again, as we see the shortfalls coming up, and like I told them last night when we all of a sudden came up with this sustainability position, it's almost with the decreases looking at, it's almost to put any positions on now. And some of the people out here who need positions also, I've told, it's just irresponsible to try to put them on now because of what we may be facing in November. But as we've always done when we're short of money and short of things and stuff, there may be some internal ways where we can get accomplished what we can. Maybe there isn't, but we're going to talk about them a little later as we do. And when we bring the salaries to you and we bring that reorganization to you, we'll tell you some of the ideas that we're still meeting and working on how maybe we can work that marketing component into there and have the concentration of money that you add to this budget, and that the list where I told you where we're going to look at in our sheet to see what's going in the budget is not going, because we can spend $40,000, $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 on a position, but you're going to put that position, use all your money, and you're going to have no money to go out there and market. Where are you going to get the ads? Where are you going to do? You have no money left there. So that's what we're going to talk about later on, not tonight, because we're still working on that to bring back to you. So salary, but that's the general thing, what the salaries are going to be. Again, there may be a few grade changes. Some of the grade changes are not going to have money attached to them. They just need to be moved up within the organization. We've got some positions we're moving because they're antiquated from the job description, but it's going to be basically what you've seen. And again, it's going to involve mostly lower salaries or positions that have just grown. And you read the job description, the people are really doing a lot more in the job description stage. So there's nothing will be outstanding in there, and we'll be bringing those back to you.
Mr. LeCruz, you've done a lot of reorganization and streamlining the department, so that worked a lot. Worked good with that over the years. So
yes,
by doing it this way, that will give us the marketing specialist responsibility that we're looking for.
I'm hoping to convince you of that. But
yeah, thank you. Before we move down to the other items, which is before I invite to the podium the Budget Advisory Committee Chairman, if you please comment on those things that the employee salaries as well as the presentation overall. So, Vice Mayor.
Thank you. And I just want to again start by saying thank you to all of our employees, especially our department heads. I started 5 years ago, and even way back when I was on the advisory boards about 10 years ago now, you all were dealing with a very tough situation. And we had some budget meetings that weren't as pleasant as this one. And I would put you all up against any staff anywhere I'm in the county, and I do mean that. So thank you for what y'all have done in the good years and in the bad years. It has been noticed, and I think that goes to the overall stability that we have here in Tarpon Springs. This morning I was at my meeting at PSTA, which is not fiscally stable, and I sit between a commissioner from Clearwater and one from Dunedin, and they were talking about, and I forget if it was raising or lowering, that they were having to adjust their millage rates. And Tarpon's been pretty stable in our millage rate. I think that's been more fair to the citizens. I always say we have to charge for the services that we provide. I think it's been fiscally sound, and we've not played games with it. So that goes to credit from the Budget Advisory Committee to commissions before me in this one. So I think that's to our favor that we do that. And I do want to thank the Budget Advisory Committee. I served 2 years on that. I know it's not the most appealing board we have, but it's a very important board. And the fact that you all, which are are very seasoned experts in budgeting, you have your eyes on this budget. I know that you all go line by line, so we don't have to, and I appreciate that. I look forward to your recommendations here in a minute. I just have a few random things, Mark, just nothing that's surprising. I've always talked about health insurance, about going up to bid. I promised you I won't force that, but I just, you know, if we never put the vendor on any kind of notice that we're looking at other options, there's no incentive for them to decrease our rates, or not decrease our rates, but decrease the amount they're going to increase. So, in the future, I'd always keep that in mind. Ron, what is the number of our unassigned fund balance projected? I must have missed that. I'm sorry.
8.5 million in the general fund.
Okay, 8.5 million. And this is I think it's our third year, not second year, is it? Without the general fund, without using the unassigned
so,
fund
third.
balance?
That's
Correct.
the third year.
Third year. Well, that's very impressive, because when I came on, we were using a significant amount.
We were at 8.8 million, but we used 300,000 for the FEMA and Hurricane Irma, but we're still hopefully waiting to get most of that money back.
That's appropriate use of the
That's what
reserve
it's
funds.
for.
That's what it's there for. And I think you can see, I don't have specific examples, but I just recall during Irma, there was the county and some other municipalities that didn't have the reserves that we had. And you look what a barely Category 1 storm did, and how much that cost us. God forbid we get a bigger storm, we will need those funds. So, again, thank you to those in the past that have supported having that balance. I do think, though, just for future reference, I wouldn't increase the reserve fund above that. I think it did get, back before the crash, it did get inflated. I think it got near 11 million, right, or 12 million. I think that is too high. I don't think that's responsible budgeting. I think 8.59 million is a good range for the unassigned fund balance to be at. Obviously, when the budget grows, we'll need to grow it, but for now, I think that's a healthy range. Mark, I know I talked to you about the fire station. Sorry, having a small fireboat. I see you put that
Yes.
in the penny budget.
That'll be in the penny budget.
And
yes.
that's for those for my colleagues. We obviously have the fireboat, which one day will be at the marina when Swift Mud or whatever clears that up. But this is for like shallow water rescue at Sunset Beach and things like that, where the larger boat can't get to. So I think that's a wise use of penny money. Ron, I recall a while back there was some law coming about retirement accounts being fully funded on like, what was it, our balance sheet or something? Maybe it was a while back. There was some new rule that with like accounting, you had to account for like being fully funded or something, or am I missing that?
I'm not familiar with that. I know the police and, the fire, they have their funding, and I think they're at a good percentage with their pension funds.
Okay, that's fine then. And for the homestead exemption, I know you've given this to me before. I know you did show us, and thank you, the amount that it would decrease. What, do you know off the top of your head the millage rate we would have to propose to make up that difference?
Well, if you're talking 482,000, you're talking about a quarter of a mil.
Quarter of a mil. Okay, all right. And obviously, I won't be on the commission at that time, but the money has to come from somewhere. And I believe this was a tax shift from Tallahassee to us, and I don't know we can cut $500,000 in our budget. So I know it's never popular to raise taxes, but I think as we continue to educate the public on voting against this, which is a very hard sell, we talk about what we would have to potentially raise the millage rate to make up that difference. Mark, for the police vehicles, I saw we are moving to all SUVs. Is that still correct?
Yes.
So the Dodge Chargers will phase out when they're done. I think that makes much more sense with the flooding and whatnot.
And it works out great with the storm events.
And then this is almost tangent, but what's the status of Court Street? I know I saw it in the budget, so just remind me what's the status of the repaving and all that? Or?
It's going into design now.
Okay.
We're preparing for the
right.
budget. It's already to our engineers to start designing.
Vice Mayor Panther, if you don't mind, that's part of the CIP. Can
Oh,
we
I'm
cover
sorry.
that later?
I'm sorry.
Can we cover that later?
So I assume the capital request unfunded would be part of that.
This is a format that we covered last year.
Yeah, I just always ask all at once. That's fine. I can
I
wait.
appreciate that.
You're welcome.
And, as my fellow colleagues said here, and we say every year, thank you to our staff. You guys all of you are does such an outstanding job. And again, we're expecting you to do more with less each year. And somehow our budget's increased and we're finding the money to cover that. So again, you're all just, you're outstanding, and such a great family that we are here. And I appreciate everything all of you do, all of your employees do. And I was talking to Mr. Salou before the meeting, and this committee here has really helped us in the past few years that they've come around. We did go page by page, line by line, sitting up here, looking at water coolers and things like that. It was ridiculous. So we appreciate your help and your extra set of eyes on your committee as well. It's really made our job a lot easier. And we look to you for your expertise because this is what your backgrounds are. So thank you again. So can I suggest a couple things? I do support the increase for our employees for salary increase. We need to keep up with, of course, the cost of living. So you're thinking 3% or 3.5%? Did you say 3.5?
The average, but a lot of the salaries a lot of them going to be 3. Where the extra half percentage is some of the lower salaries are going to be maybe 4 or 5, 6 to get them up to the lower place. So average, hopefully, it's going to come in the 3.5 range.
Because, I do see other cities, what they're paying their staff, and we are at the lower end. I even look at, which I know we don't have control, the fire and the police department, when I see what some of these people are making, and they're putting their lives on the line
Right now,
for
I think
us.
75 or 80% of the cities is 3%. So we'll be moving consistent with all the other cities that we're competing against at 3%.
Okay, thank you. And I've said before in the past, I know it's not in the budget now or anything, but I think we need to start looking to the future with the library and expanding our library. Just, that's always been on my mind.
That's a good thing with the penny pass, and that's why when you see and we start talking about those out years that you see there, to start looking at that
Really, we need to look at.
that's already in the process. That's one of Bob Robertson's thing on his list to start preparing for and being ready for.
I think it's real important. And of course, we don't know. We don't know what's going to happen with this in November with the vote on the extra exemption. So, we're kind of up in the air. I mean, we're looking at what, $500,000 on losing income. So, I mean, this can really hurt us. So, there's so many things that I want to see, that I just don't know if we'll be able to do that. I did have a suggestion. I talked to Mark about it. I don't know if this is a time to discuss it or not, where we give $5,000 a year to the homeless leadership, and then we give $5,000 to Safe Harbor. So Safe Harbor, now correct me, Mark explained it. Safe Harbor is where the explain what they do.
The homeless outreach office.
Right,
That's
homeless
where
outreach.
we find people in need of. That's where we bring them. They directly are the ones that accept our people to try to get them help.
So they directly help us in our community. The homeless leadership, I'm not exactly sure where that $5,000 goes to. I don't know if maybe we want to try and keep it more local. I know our Shepherd Center is trying to build, or we could split it to few different places. I'm not sure, but it's something I'm thinking about is why don't we try and give that $5,000 and keep it local in our community? So I don't know how, if we vote on that, we just take a.
Yeah, I think probably when we get on to the general fund discussion,
Okay.
that's one of the where we go into some of those items
Okay.
that we want to look at.
So I'll save all these for later on. But again, we're very lucky to have the staff that we have here. And again, I thank you for everything that you do for us.
Thank you. Also, Mark, when you're preparing the pay scale, if you please include the city manager's pay scale as well as the city clerk. As we did last. Thank you. Commissioner Siebert.
Yes, of course, I want to thank you, Ron. Thank you for this presentation. It's so easy to understand. Of course, being on the Budget Advisory Committee really helped me to understand the budget, too, and I appreciate all that you guys do. And thank you, and thanks to all the department heads and all your hard work and how you make this budget balance, because it takes all of you to help do that without using our unassigned funds. I had a couple of questions, Ron. On that page with general fund revenue resources to offset expenditure increases in the health insurance GF reserve, that 99,837, does that deplete those reserves now?
I'm sorry, what?
Does that deplete those reserves using those?
With using the 99,000, it brings it down to about 200,000.
All right.
It's a reserve in the general fund.
And the other question I had, I see that we've funded for the tennis courts at Riverside. Are there any plans for Craig Park tennis courts? Any funding or?
That's one of the questions that Tom, we
Yeah,
can get you that
he's
and
not
talk about
here,
in one
yeah.
of the future ones.
Okay,
We can put that down.
because I hear from residents that play there a lot that there's a need for that.
And I know there's a schedule,
Yeah,
so
they
I
have a
get,
schedule, but I think it's
Yeah.
been a while. So I was curious about that. Thanks, Ron.
Sure.
And, the mayor brought up marketing. Of course, I've brought it up every year for 4 years. And I'm just not talking just about advertising our city. We need to do more than advertise. We need a marketing specialist that collects data and goes to TDC meetings and does a lot more than just advertising. We do help advertise with the Merchants Association and the Chamber. But I feel that position, and I know you're talking about reorganization and cultural services, and, there may be some marketing person there, but I really feel that person would be appropriate aid to Karen, our economic development manager, and maybe this person could be placed even in the new little building we're leasing. But it's necessary for us as a city, I think, to have a marketing specialist. I think most cities around us have them. I'd like to see the data on that, but a lot of the cities I know do have them in our area. And this position would be doing marketing research as well. So we need to do a study on branding, attend the TDC meetings, as I mentioned earlier, and report what they've discussed and what they've shared. I know that I've gone to some of them, and they paint a pretty good picture of how things are increasing. The hotels are doing better. The airport is doing better with high rates of visitors. Maybe we can piggyback on some of their studies to include Tarpon Springs. We need to do like some trends of business licenses issued, what types of businesses and their locations. I know we welcome many new businesses every year, but we also have a lot of businesses leaving. Do we do exit interviews? Do we reach out to those businesses leaving? What is our net? I just drove down Athens Street on my way here, and I saw 10 businesses gone on Athens Street. And that concerns me because in the last 3 years, as a business owner, I have heard from many business owners, especially on the docks, that their numbers have been decreasing. And, we need to find out why, what's going on. Some businesses are down 30 to 50%, and tourism is our number one industry in this town. So if we start losing that, I just feel like we need to start doing something, not just letting things stay the way they are. I know that we may lose some of that homestead exemption money, and we may not have the funds right now. But I feel that we need to do something. I know we've unified our efforts with the Merchants Association and the Chamber, and I think we need to do more, work on an advertising plan. I know that I created a brochure several years ago to go in the visitor centers when I was president of the Merchants Association. I don't know if that's still being done. I know before that I'd go through the visitor centers and see that Homosassa and Silver Springs and St. Pete and Clearwater and Busch Gardens were all in there, but not Tarpon Springs. So I wonder whether we have any kind of literature in our visitor centers at this point. So we do need to conduct research in what our other surrounding communities are doing. We need somebody who's not just hired to advertise, but who has experience in marketing research as well. And again, I think that position would be a good aid to Karen. She's, in the last few years, done a lot of other jobs and has had a lot of other responsibilities, and she does a great job, but I think she needs some help. So those are my ideas, and whatever we can do, I think we need to start somewhere. So just wanted to give you my opinion.
Thank you, Mayor. Can I just have clarification what is appropriate to comment right now?
Well, if you just comment on the presentation and the employee salaries.
Okay.
After that, I'm going to turn it over to the Budget Advisory Committee Chairman
Okay.
to give us their recommendations. Then we're going to move down to the general fund.
Thanks. Ron, thank you for the presentation, and thank you all for being here tonight and your hard work for the city for this past year and then moving into the future of this coming year in the budget season. I know it's always super exciting for all you guys to talk about. I do have a couple concerns. Although our millage rate did not increase, we do have a tax increase for our residents due to the property values increase, and that's something that really hasn't been discussed. Although a homeowner at a normal house within the residents of Tarpon, their millage rate hasn't changed, their tax increases have also, their tax requirement has increased. So to them, they're seeing a tax increase, although we're not calling it a tax increase because the millage rate has stayed the same. To me, that's somewhat concerning. We're increasing our revenues. I think it was about $1.8 million, so it's a pretty significant increase to the tax base to the residents. What's that?
And business owners.
And business, you're correct. It's business owners, commercial property is the same. I do think we do need to start planning ahead for the future. I do support, obviously, the increase in the personnel increases. I think it's important to make sure we're paying our staff members appropriately. We require a lot out of them, and they really step up to produce a lot of great information for our meetings and for the residents, and they go above and beyond, I think, a lot of aspects. So thank you all for doing that. Again, though, this is an area that we saw an increase of $1.2 million for this coming year. We're looking at shortfalls in 2020 and 2021. So I'm curious to see what our plans are for moving forward into the future and how we're going to address these shortfalls in the near future. I would also caution on positions that are added before we look at reorganization aspects due to these costs, due to the revenue decrease over the next couple years. But the majority of my items that I would like to talk about are going to fall in some of these other categories. So thank you all.
Thank you. Now I'd like to invite to the podium the Budget Advisory Committee Chairman, Mr. Sulu.
Thank you. Raj Salu, Chairman of the Budget Advisory Committee. I'm going to do the same thing that you've all spoken to, and that is to thank the city manager and the staff for the work they've done in putting the budget together. I've been involved in this, I guess, for 8 or 9 years, and there's been a dramatic improvement year on year on year on the quality of the budget that you guys receive. You've given us thanks for looking at the detail. Frankly, that's not as true as you might think. I think the members of your organization in the city have done a good job at looking at the detail as well. We've asked some questions, but we don't find areas that need major change. The city manager has already done that by the time we see the budget. And this year, in fact, he took a rake through the budget and said anything that's in the budget and it's these small numbers that add up that wasn't spent the year before, we're just not going to budget it this year. So that we've taken some additional funds out of the budget. And we would certainly agree with the actions that were taken. Your finance director has educated us, and I believe you've made a presentation to you on where do all of those sort of exciting, mysterious funds come from and go. Ron, did you give that presentation to them that you gave to us on the various and sundry funds that we borrowed back and forth between? You did, right?
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah. And it was these funds that, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago, as people were going through the election process, were kind of claiming that it was found money and we shouldn't do this, we ought to borrow and not trade it off. Actually, he's doing an outstanding job. They're finding ways to fund internally. That's a lot cheaper than going out and borrowing and just keeping money in the bank that we don't earn much money on. So they're doing an outstanding job of managing the finances and the resources and the assets of the city. Now, one of the big differences that we see is the Budget Advisory Committee that's different than normally a public company would do is how do you handle capital? And unfortunately, that's kind of the accordion that lets you guys balance the budget. As you recall, when we came up with we had approved the funding, or at least the rate setting for your water sewer system. It came upon the folks here who said it was a little high, and they took it down. And they did it by reducing the capital. They reduced the money that came in, and out of the money that comes in is going to have to pay for the capital. We don't think they got too close to the thin ice at the edge of the pond. I think it'll be fine, but it is something that you should be concerned about as you look to make sure we're putting the right amount of capital into these assets to make sure they're serviceable long-term. When we look at ways of saving money, and the easy answer is to put off doing something that's capital-related, all it does is raise the risk that something's going to break between now and when you finally spend it. So I would caution the commission to look carefully as you save money by putting something off, pull that cash forward to spend it operationally this year. I think we've gotten a great balance in this budget, and I'm very happy to bring it forward to you and recommend we do it. I think one of the things that the city manager has done is to draw a line in what is approved and recommended, which is what you see in your book, and offer you a sheet of things that didn't make the cut, but recognize there is probably more funds available that can fund. There will be some things. Ron had spoken to some areas that will be a little less than what's anticipated, and I think we've gotten some of the discussions already this evening have gotten into looking at what are the things that we can add to it. I'm not sure there's much that we would recommend you take out, but I think there are things that can be added to it. I think there's resources for it. I agree with you folks, and I think the committee would as well. The big issue is what happens in November. $400 and some odd thousand is a big hole to fill. And if we fill it easily by just pulling back your capital, you run the risk of having more water problems as we did, 18 months ago? Mark, down on the trail, when we start losing water mains and having major rework that has to be done. So my caution would be careful as we try and postpone doing things like that. I would give great credence to your finance and your operations people. They've done a great job. The budget came this year without many changes at all. I think the budget was well presented. I think it was well done. I think we'd recommend that the budget, as it's now situated, be the base to which you look at what to do with extra funds and what to add. And already the construction and the discussion is not about little things, but what can we add as major individual projects and add-ons to doing things for the city of Tarpon Springs. And that's your role. You guys do the strategic stuff and pick the right areas to go. We'll figure out how to pay for it after the fact. I thank you. I've enjoyed the operation of being with the Budget Advisory Committee. Marty's here. If he wants to make some comments, that's fine as well. But I think you guys have got an incredible group behind the scenes in the city of Tarpon Springs that are doing the work for the residents, citizens of Tarpon Springs. They should be pleased as punch they've got the folks they've got. And you are not the Illinois and Connecticut issues where we aren't funded. We are. We're funded. We're making up, if there's shortfalls, it's being made up at the both the police and fire. And we're filling up any gaps in the shortfalls for funding. We don't have those. And $8.5 million is a wonderful cushion to have when the next CAP 2 or CAP 3 shows up in Tarpon Springs. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Peters, you want to make some comments? Okay. Well, I'd just like to, Mr. Sulu, if you convey my gratitude to all the Budget Advisory Committee members, and we are very glad that we have you. You made it very easy for us, as it was mentioned from my counterparts, that you guys analyzing each line item, and you're making it easier for us. And I'm glad that we have the Budget Advisory Committee here in Tarpon Springs. Any comments on this item? Any comments on Mr. Salou just said? Any comments? No. Okay. If not, we go to the general fund discussion.
And again, as you see, I have everybody in the audience, so as you look at the general fund and have questions, they're all patiently waiting out there to answer your questions on whatever area or departments it comes at from the general fund.
General fund begins on slide number 7. Well, the general fund this year increased by 1.1 million, 5.06%. It's a pretty healthy increase, and this is the third year in a row that we have a balanced budget, as was mentioned earlier, without the use of the emergency funds, even though that we still have money coming from FEMA. So again, congratulations to everyone involved, from the finance director to the city manager to all the staff, and again to the Budget Advisory Committee. I am glad that the health insurance this year came lower than we expected. The increase was 6%. Instead of 10% as was projected, so we saved some money in there. The dental had no increase at all. As Commissioner Carr just mentioned, that the property tax value has been increased. It was increased 6.72%, which is 5.43. Of course, that happens to all the cities, and all the other cities raising the millage, but we keep it the same. This is something that we're doing well, I think. But if the voters approve the homestead exemption, that will reduce the budget about $500,000 for next year. So something that we all have to be concerned. One question that I have to Mr. Herrick, I didn't see any revenue from the hotel tax. Is this something that we need to apply for? How can we get some of the money that everybody else is getting?
From the motel tax? You're talking about the bed tax?
Yeah.
That goes through the county. The county gets that money, and from what I understand, there's an application process if you want to get the bed tax money.
Can we submit this application and get some of these revenues?
We can find out about it, but yeah, the money goes to the county, and I believe there's a submittal process for it. I'm just not sure the total process on it, but we can look into that.
Yeah, we need to find out, because if it's revenue, it's money there, we should be able to get some of that.
Mm-hmm.
But we need somebody to be doing it.
Let me see, but yeah, you want?
I said, this is why I'm proposing that we have someone that, that follows up with these kinds of things, goes to TDC meetings. And
Well, that's the comments that I want to make on the general fund. And Commissioner Sibber, you want to?
no, no more questions.
No questions. Commissioner Carr?
I'll piggyback on that one, Mayor. Thanks for bringing that up as one of my questions that I had as well. To me, when you read the papers and you see these other communities like Dunedin, Clearwater, St. Pete, Clearwater Beach, you see a lot of these that are like $20 million, $40 million for these large capital projects, and a lot of them are public or private combinations. So I do think Tarpon Springs is really missing out on this opportunity for some capital projects for the bed tax throughout the county as well. I would like to encourage the city manager to look into how we can assign somebody to look at this and get involved. I'm happy to write letters to the board. I know there's a committee that sits, I believe it's the county commission that sits on this board to allocate funds throughout the county. And
Karen, do you want to talk a little bit about the bed tax and the challenges that we could have the best marketing director around, and you're going to have trouble with the bed tax? So.
yeah, we still have hotels.
Yeah, the bed tax essentially funds the St. Pete Clearwater CVB and all their marketing and tourism efforts. They also have two funds. One is a capital fund, and one is a fund for large events. And cities can apply for both of those. The capital funds are used for, like, the Blue Jays Stadium. Now Clearwater is looking at and renovations for Spectrum Field. Those are some of the large projects that cities apply for. So unless we had something that was an enormous project, that wouldn't be a fund that we would apply for. The tourism event funds are for large events that draw people from not only across the region, across the state, and across the country. So these are our large festivals, the Clearwater Sand Festival, some of the Jazz Festival in Clearwater, some of the very large events, not the Daytona, the speed event that's held, the St. Pete Grand Prix, thank you, that's held every year. Those are the big events that get the funding from that fund. So we have some our largest event is probably Snow Place and our First Fridays. Those are not eligible funds. You also have to prove that people are coming here from all over and staying in the hotels. They look at how many people are staying in hotels in your community, how are we drawing people from outside of the community into staying in our hotels. So there's a lot of and I can get you more information, all the details of it.
What I was going to ask is to educate because it may seem like we're not haven't looked at, haven't tried, or haven't done. If you get that information so we can talk about it in later meetings, so they see what kind of maybe get the funding of the projects for the last 3 or 4 years. If you can compile all the information and get it to commissioners so we can discuss it another day.
Because we've looked at all of those, yes.
I have a question too when you're done.
Sure. I mean, we've got a great asset, right, for tourism and the sponge docks. So somehow we need to be able to leverage those numbers of the people that come, if it's regional or national. And although our hotel population is a very small footprint in Tarpon Springs, I still think we do have hotels in 19 and a couple of areas in town that do pay bed tax. So I do think there's an opportunity. And like I said, I'm happy to fight as a commissioner for some of these funds down county.
We'll get the information and we'll have further talks on that because
If this hotel tax is actually designed for the large cities, we should be able to complain and do something with that. Because like Commissioner Carr says, we do have functions and as a small city that we can actually get some assistance like the large cities do. So
again,
perhaps
we'll show you the criteria and we can talk about it and we'll get that criteria to you. But
I had a question.
it's not easy.
Commissioner Seaver, you have a question? Sorry, Commissioner Carr, I'll go back to you.
It's fine.
Oh, were you done?
No, I'll hold on.
Okay. Since we do bring people from outside this area and outside of the state for Epiphany, would that, even though it's a church event, would that be eligible for funding for,
No, I'm not sure what you'd be funding. What would you be?
Well, we pay for our police department
I don't think we'll get you the criteria and show you. I don't think that would be. We'll get that back. We need to get you. We need y'all to look at all the information and stuff and see. And everything we've looked at, events we have and stuff, they wouldn't qualify for. So we'll show you. We'll get it to you again. And
let's build something then. I mean, if the Blue Jays could get $30 million for their stadium in Dunedin.
And again, that's not to say we're not going to go down and fight for our share of stuff, but you have to change the criteria because if you can't meet the present criteria, so you have to change the criteria and have them recognize as small places like that. So I'm not saying we don't try or do something, but under the present format, we could have the best in the country in here unless we're going to, like I say, host a team. One of the places we may be able to get money in the future for that, and we've talked about, I know the mayor's been involved, we talked about possibly spring training for an MLS team. Now, that may be an opportunity for a sports complex if we were able to get the MLS team and Major League Soccer. Right now, I think Oldsmar, one of them's got New York that comes down here. I think one of the Canadian teams, there's about 4 cities that have those, and they've enhanced their complexes because they have requirements. So there'd be a money impact that we'd have to improve our sports complex to get them in. But there you're talking about, and we've been talking several years. I know the mayor met with us out with some people that are looking at possibly doing that. So that may be some, now that and the money we need to improve our field to do that spring training for there, that would be an eligible project to submit because we'd want that funding if we're going to bring a Major League Soccer team here, which again, the team that's a Canadian team, and since you're down there in that time of year where a lot of people are down here, it draws and it meets the criteria of drawing people from outside the state, the country. So that would be the one that we've been looking at and possibly getting money for. So, and we'll talk more about that when we get that information back to you.
Thank you. Commissioner Cart, back to you.
Thanks. Vice Mayor mentioned something along the lines of bidding the health insurance, and I would completely support that. I completely support bidding any insurances. I feel insurances will take advantage of companies and individuals the longer you're with them if you don't bid them out and get competitive bids. I don't recall the last time we did it. I'm sure you know. So I would encourage that as well for the general fund, especially with the significant increase that we saw, close to $400,000 this year. And
again, I won't give my speech because it's long and hard, but when we do that, remember we've got a health center. We have got your number one benefit that you give to the city employees out of here in our clinic. That is the number one benefit, and that's tied with our health. So yes, we go out and do some, but we're certainly going to go out and do it. And as I've told you in the past years, every year we monitor the health that all of the cities, their health plans and what we've got. And with what we got and what we pay, we are probably the best health plan for employees. So I understand to go out and bid and keep them competitive. And believe me, they have heard Commissioner Banther, and I think we've done good by hearing him and doing it. I think our rates could be a lot different because that stuff fluctuates. You got to realize here with us, we have got, and again, there's rules you can't talk, but we've got at least one or two employees here that have major draws on our health. I mean, major. I'm talking one to the extent of maybe $20,000, $25,000 a month of a medical thing. That you can bid that however much you want, and that's going to be a problem that you have to assume. Obviously, you can't help an employee that has major claims or major things, and we've got a couple of them, and that's what driving up. We were lucky the year we didn't get an increase, but you know we have to deal with the bids, those type of things too. Obviously, you can't say the employee, why is one employee taking that much money a month from the health plan? But there's a lot of factors to go in and look at, and we have talked about it, and they know at the end of this present 3 years where the health clinic is. But I guarantee you, forget about money, forget about anything else. If this commission decides to do something where that health clinic goes away, you're going to destroy the morale of these employees and things, because that's probably one of the number one benefits you provide for them. And I think we have the best plan overall and stuff. So, but we'll be talking about that in the future when this one, we will, that's something you do. And believe me, I'm going to tell them, just because Commissioner Banther's going off the board, that there's a watchdog on them and their rates, and that we've got others on the commission that's going to be watched to make sure. And again, when this year comes and all the cities have their health plan employees, we're going to compile them and get them back to you and show you for what we pay. We still have the best value for the dollar of health plans for our employee in this county. So we'll bring that back for you.
thank you for your speech.
You're welcome. He's heard it a lot of times. You're new here.
I just want to, and don't take this the wrong way, I just want to remind everybody we're running into a potential deficit over the next couple years, and we've got to get creative in how, I mean, we want to pay our employees the top dollar that we can, and we want to make sure they have the best benefits. That's important. But we've got to come up and outline creative ways to cut back on health insurance potentially or other areas in the budget to where we're not going to limit our services and then having to raise our taxes to our residents as well. So keeping our staff well salaried and then also competitive, and then also the benefits are important. But again, just that I'm looking down the road and looking down the future. There's a handful of things that we want to probably put on a checklist to say we might want to run down here and just put some scenarios together to say if this happens, what can we look at? What can we look at to make it work? So
I'll give you my short 40-year speech. In 40 years of being with the city, every time we've done that, gone out, every time, 100% every time we've gone out there, got the cheaper bids, done that stuff, we have regretted it the next year or two, and we've crawled back to the place where we were now. That's a 40-year short story experience that I guarantee you has happened. So you just have to remember all those things.
Got it.
Okay.
Thanks for your history on that. A couple other things that like I said, we've got a great staff. I reach out to multiple staff departments just to ask questions all the time. I do think we can help the department heads by allocating some more funds for customer service training for some of their staff members that may be new, and just encouraging them, because as we remember, we're here to serve the residents, and a happy, joyful voice on the other side of the phone is always a great thing to be received when you're calling a department. We've got a lot of great department individuals in the departments, but I think just giving some additional resources, any training, I think helps. Even on my end, I love being able to have the opportunity to go to training any opportunity I can. So,
Yes, that will be incorporated into this year's training.
and then can we just touch base? I just want to have a better understanding on the general funds about the marketing dollars. I know we've talked a couple aspects about marketing employees. What is I thought I saw it was like $20,000 of matching funds that could be used to like the Merchants Association or the Chamber.
Ron, do you
can
have
someone
that?
help me out with that?
Do you have that sheet of the breakdown in the non-departmental where we have that?
Yeah, we have $20,000 in non-departmental for the tourism.
Okay.
We've
Marketing,
got other
tourism.
categories, because we got the brochures that we do, like we talked about, the brochures and distribute. You'll find that in departmental in your budget. Tell them what page.
I saw it was 20,000. I remember seeing it. I just
Yeah.
want to reiterate.
But that's not just. I just want
and
to
then I
make
saw
sure.
brochures as well. I remember seeing that. That was a fun
It's in the
read.
neighborhood of 35.
So-
I think $35,000 when you add all the brochures and stuff up total. 40, close to 40,000. Okay.
What's a Merchants Association?
There's also some money, I know, in Diane's cultural department, but I'm not sure if that's for other items. There are about 35,000 there. And I know there's about another 20,000 in performing arts department, but that's probably for something specifically there. But like I said, there's the other 20,000 in non-departmental.
Yeah, I do think it would be a neat opportunity to see if there's an even an opportunity to increase that a little bit. If it's the Merchants Association, if it's a chamber saying, hey, we'll match you with this. If we could all three come together, I'm sure we do in some circumstances. I'm not as well versed in this as
Yes, we do.
I should be, but I think if we could increase that, if there's an opportunity there, if there's another $5,000-$10,000 for the year, and then if they come back and are able to raise some money amongst the businesses and they know that the city's behind them, I think that's an important thing to show.
I just want to mention that Merchants Association spent about $35,000 this year in advertising, and to have partnered with the city on several things.
Okay, thanks. I've got all my other questions pretty much pertain to capital, so I'll hold off. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Panther?
Thank you, and I apologize if I got out of my lane in the
That's
first
okay.
set. I get
That's
excited
fine.
about budget hearings, you know me, I'm sorry. I do support, obviously, the employee salaries, and I do, as per usual, want to give the usual increases to the city manager and the city clerk as well, when that comes forward. So I'm in support of that, and I'll piggyback. I just got some piggyback comments to support some things that my colleague said. Well, no, I guess you'll hear me talk about health insurance again in October when they come back, right? So we got one more time besides this.
Yeah.
And I will repeat though, and I've said this 100 times. When I say go out to bid, does not mean that we pick the cheapest option. I'm fully aware our employees are not raking it in here, and we supplement an average salary to them by giving them top notch health care. Now, I'm not a fan of the league, but I fully admit they might be the very best option, but we don't know that until we do it. And obviously, anything we would go out to bid, which I assume would go through budget advisory as well, would have to include a medical facility as we have now. We would not take that away. Well, even though I was in support originally of the hospital doing it, and I still would be, and not having a clinic in Palm Harbor share with Oldsmar, I would never take that benefit away. You know, I would know with any commissioner, I think so.
Right.
That needs to be put in perspective.
Okay.
As far as taxes, and again, Mayor, if I get out of my lane, tell me. Taxes, Commissioner Carr mentioned about our residents though we're not raising the millage rate, they are paying more because their property values go up. Obviously, that's not something we can control. And I think if you look at Ron's graphs from 2005 to now, there's there's kind of an equilibrium. I think that levels out. And there will be a downturn soon. I don't think the downturn we saw in 08, the mechanics of the market are not there. But I do think working real estate prices are way too high for homes. and there will be some kind of leveling out, not a drop like we had, but so there will be, along with our foreseen shortfall of the homestead exemption, we're going to be seeing, I'm sure, at least a leveling out of home value. So I'm not too worked up on that. And you know, I'll say it, probably the only person on the board that I would say this. I would be in full support of raising the millage rate if we have the homestead exemption pass, because unless there's fluff in this budget that I'm unaware of, and by the conversation I hear tonight, I don't think there is. I can tell you this: we can drop the millage rate a few points or whatever for political reasons, and you're hardly going to get a thank you, because as Commissioner Carr said, residents pay typically more each year because values go up. But the minute we cut services, they're going to start calling us. So we are a full service city. That's why our millage rate is not 3.5. We have water, police, fire, et cetera. So you have to pay for what we have. That's just the hard truth on that. I am in support of looking to how we can either hire a marketing person sometime in the future, or Mark, what you mentioned about the collaboration with the arts department or whatever. I do think we need that person. I don't know. I know the chamber is on life support here. I don't know if there could be some kind of collaboration with that, but something does need to be done. I do agree with Commissioner Sieber about someone who is tasked with marketing. I don't know if that's a new person or what you're doing with the arts department, something with the chamber, but I do think we have to eventually get something in place for that. It can't all fall on Karen or somebody else. I fully support though Commissioner Kika's comments on the homeless leadership board. We give them $5,000 a year. I know I served on that, and Commissioner Sieber served on that for many years. They currently we don't have anybody going because of our schedules, and I have other comments, but I won't say them on here. And we offered to send, I think, our homeless outreach officer, correct, Mark? Who I think is the best person to go, and I think honestly could teach them some things, and they have said flat out no. So I think we need to, maybe if there's a consensus, put them on notice that if you want to allow us to do that, then we're going to have to direct those funds to another humanitarian effort that directly affects Tarpon Springs, because otherwise we're just paying a $5,000 membership fee. Because honest to God, from serving on that board, unless things have changed, and Commissioner Sieber can chime in, I think we do a far better job here with our with our homeless leadership officer, with our community partners than a lot of those cities do on that board. So I would maybe put a hard proposal to them, and if they still say no, then those funds need to be sent elsewhere. And I think that's it. So, but yes, I do support the employee salaries increase. And then my other comments would be the unfunded would be under capital, correct? For the unfunded projects you listed?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I will wait till then.
Most of those are, yes.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Sorry. Yes, I know it's come up many years now that we hire a full-time marketing person or somebody give Karen some more help with that. So if I'm kind of anxious to see what you have in mind with the cultural civil service department, to see what you're talking about with the marketing person, and I honestly don't think that the chamber can help us with that, and I don't think that's their responsibility anyway, that they have their own things going on over there. So I think that we should keep them separate from our marketing plan. Let me see. Cultural and civil services. I know I spoke with Diane Woods, and Ray and I have, Commissioner Sieber and I, and when we have events here, I don't know if this is the proper place to talk about this, but we're talking about generating some more income. And I know that Mark has a little bit of a problem, but selling concessions, maybe beer and wine during events, that stay out there, don't come in here.
Big problem.
I know you do, but other.
Oh, not. This isn't one of
I know
This
there's,
isn't Dry County LaCourse. You've got to have regulations on, this isn't, that's what he used to call me, to plead Dry County LaCourse.
well, you know, at
It's up to me, I make it Dry
$5, you know,
County.
a piece, people would want that, and people that come to watch these shows and before, and maybe an intermission. So, but I know there was a problem with with the funds and how you.
Well, there's a bigger problem with alcohol because there are requirements about people who serve alcohol, and they have to be trained and go through training. Can't be it's and we'll get all that HR will get all that information. There's a problem with how you do it and who you have serving.
It's called TIPS training, and it's not. It's a class. It's nothing. Honestly, I'm very well aware of what they have to do, but I think it's something that we need to look into. I honestly think that could help generate some more income. And I know people would probably, you know, they'd enjoy that. They come out in the afternoon, they want to have a cocktail before the show, maybe an intermission, you know. I know, you know, we discussed it. Yeah, right? But I just think that's one way to help generate income. But I know you had some issues with other concession sales and stuff and collecting money and all that. And I know that needs to be worked out. But again, I think it's something we really need to look at. Let's see. I also saw Building and Development Services has asked for more training. So I support any training that any department wants. You can never learn enough about your jobs. And of course, I said earlier about the library. We really need to consider looking to expand soon. I noticed in the budget that our ball fields are being taken care of, and I appreciate that because I'm getting some phone calls from some of the leagues asking me to do walkthroughs with them. So I'm glad to see that's in the budget. I can now point that out to them that it is being taken care of. Oh, CIP. Okay.
Well, another thing, in general fund, let me add, because there is some general fund, those are some extra major projects, but there's still some things within general fund, public works, ability, like rusted out places, stuff like that, that wouldn't be in the major project portion, that would be in this general fund. We're well aware, if Little League Baseball will get with the routine, we've got a routine set up for Little League Baseball to deal with their field and do it. One designee who's the vice president that contacts us with the needs and do it. We've had problems with them because it's parents one way, it's all over the place. We tried to combine them. We want your liaison with our liaison to do, but there are other things beside the project you see in CIP. There's things in general fund. Commissioner Carr and I did a walk around Sisler Field and so there are other maintenance things that we've got incorporated into the general fund and the public works budget that aren't project wise, but it's still clearing up rusted places, changing some things, tree fund to add trees and landscaping on there. So you got a lot of other different funds, not just what you see for the dugouts and that sort of stuff. So within this budget, there are other things. So there are plenty of things, and Sisler Field's one of the main, our sports complex goods, but that's one of the main ones that you'll be seeing improvements with. And there's general fund money budgeted to do that within the public works, in addition to the major projects on the CIP.
Okay. And like I stated earlier, and Vice Mayor has commented about the funds for the homeless leadership. I don't know when or how we can reallocate funds for, from them, or cut back what we give them now. I'm not sure, but I really would like for that.
I'll bring you the list of the ones when we talk at one of the next ones. I'll bring those back for you, and you just decide what you're going to fund.
Okay.
Because I know we got some requests, and I'll be bringing back to you because this is the time they come in. So there's some other places that have, some simple ones like 211, which is a great service for telling people you got needs to go. They're only asking for $500. I'd be glad to find 500 in there for them because they are somewhere. And I know our senior center and other places call this number, and so there's some of those. So what I will bring,
we could allocate it.
What I'll bring you in the future is the one who's done it, and then you take that pot of money that's there and allocate it to which ones you want to.
A good idea.
I think that's great. We need to keep it local if we can. I do have a question about the SAFER grant. My question, can we reapply for that?
You'd have to do new
when it
people.
expires. Yeah, well,
you'd have to do new people.
We'd have to be.
Are you asking to redo another one to add additional firefighters, or
we can't just
there's a 2-year, I believe at the end of this there's a 2-year extension you can apply for if I'm correct. Is that what you're asking, or are you asking to do additional one after this?
I think
Well,
she's asking, can we
like
get
an
more
extent-
funding and not end our funding when it
We
ends?
can, I believe there's I'd have to double check, but I believe there's a 2-year extension that we can apply for.
We will definitely be applying for it
Okay.
if it's available.
Okay.
I'll
yeah, I
double
think
check
it's-
on that.
'Cause
Yeah,
that's one of the
because
ways we'll help if that 400 that's one of the
Yeah.
ways we'll help knock that out if we get an extension.
that would be great.
And I think the homestead exemption would be a good
That may
reason
be a good criteria
why
that
people
why we
could
need to
get
do
the
it.
exception, because we're, 4
Yeah.
officers that we put in, that's a lot of, 4 people for the 4 is a lot of obligation. And with this hurting us, I think that would be good grounds, but you'll have everybody applying for it.
So
But
I'm sure there'll be a deadline for that, so yeah, the sooner we can look at that. And since you're up there, Chief, I have a question. I've been seeing a lot about these hoods, special hoods that the firefighters have to wear. Do we have those?
We do not have those yet. We're looking into them. The data isn't in on those yet. They've only been out a little over a year. They're about $100 to $120 a person for those hoods. So some departments are jumping at it, but we've kind of been waiting. The sales guy has talked to me about it. He says just to wait, give it another 6-7 months to see if the data really shows they're doing what they're doing to spend that extra money. Right now, hoods cost us about $40 a person, so that increase is significant. I'm not against it. If the data's there, I'll definitely get them.
Right.
But it's just, let's make sure before we spend the money that it's what we want to do.
Okay, great, thank you. Yeah, if we can look into that, because I don't know.
yeah, but those would definitely be some of the availability they work and doing. Our people don't have it. We've always,
So
for
far,
public
they're-
safety, wanted our people to have the best.
We want
so.
them to have the best.
So
You know,
far, that's good. The data so far is good, but they just want more time to make sure.
right, because I know when I did the fire ops, they spoke about having 2 sets of uniforms and all that, and you'd be amazed that some fire departments don't have what we have.
We
Because
have-
I asked, and he goes,
We
yes,
are,
ma'am.
we are one of the few that have 2 sets of everything for our firefighters. The hoods are the only thing that we don't. We just purchased the extra set of gloves this year for them. So the hoods are the only thing. We have 2 hoods. We just don't have 2 of those new
special
style
ones.
hoods yet.
Right, well, good, yeah, I was really pleased to hear that that they have the protective gear that they needed. Okay, great, thank you very much. Economic development, Karen, she does such a good job, but I know I think she needs help. I think another part-time person or something to help her. She's done so much since she's been here. Because I really think that we should have some presence down at TDC. I know that the chamber goes, but again,
Actually, the chamber is not going.
she told me she was going, and she's like, out of sight, out of mind. You need to be there. You need to be. So I think it's something that I need to get their schedule and see if I can start possibly going
It's the first Wednesday of every month,
the first Wednesday.
10 o'clock.
I can make that. Wednesdays are good for me. Okay. So I don't know, Mark, because there's nobody else, because you have staff on Wednesdays, right?
Yeah.
So nobody from staff would be able to go.
Well, I mean, there's other meetings that people have to miss Wednesdays for and staff and
Yeah,
stuff
well,
to do. but-
okay. So we'll talk about that, because I really think it's important that we have some presence down there. I know when we did, years ago, I know Mr. Valeris went down there quite a bit, and it was very helpful to our city. So I'd like to see that, if we can start that again. And I think, there's an open position in the HR department that's been open for many years. Are we planning on filling that position?
We are advertising, re-advertising, and looking. We've been unable to get a qualified candidate for in there.
Well, maybe you should, I don't know. Should we look at the,
Even chief coaching was assigned to assist them in trying to get a good candidate. We're not just looking for, we're looking for, but we're going to be talking about, we just might have to bring somebody in that doesn't have what we need
train
and
them.
work on training. And we're to that point now of trying to bring why the public sector, why our sector is not got people in HR. They're all in the private. I know that's another problem with other places and stuff. So we have talked about
because we've had this position open for, I don't even know,
well,
5 or more years.
We've got some candidates that we just may have to lower expectation and do training. That's going to take a long, but we're sitting anyway. So
Well, if you lower the expectations, maybe we could lower the salary.
we're
I don't know.
We're at well, it would be like we bring them in, and then when they build up and get the training stuff we need, we move their salary
Right.
commensurate. So
I was gonna say, have you reached out to any recruiters about this? If this is a struggle getting applicants, to have a recruiter actually do the recruiting on behalf of the city?
I don't think we've used a recruiter.
I'm
We've
not
used
always-
other sources though and stuff.
'Cause I even get phone calls and people say, I see this, I've gotten many phone calls, you know, this position posted on, and it's been posted for years. It's like, you know, I'm sure we could bring somebody in and train them.
Well, again, we've got some candidates that will have to do it a different way, and we're almost at the point because we're going to fill the thing. We're going to fill it soon. So we just may need to do that. And we've got a couple candidates that are still available that may be available for that. So believe me, it's going to be filled as soon as I can get it filled.
Okay, that's all I have. Thank you.
Commissioner Sieber.
Yes, there are a couple of comments that my colleagues have made that I agree with. First of all, having served on that homeless leadership board for many years, and they haven't found a replacement for me, I also suggested our homeless outreach officer because, you know, that would be the best option, I feel. They wanted an elected official, so maybe we need to hold that over them. We're going to stop our funding if you don't, you know, send someone else. And maybe we could use that funding to help our resource officer. Use it somehow here. I mean, there are some cities who have teams of people for the homeless that go out. And I know we're not talking about another position here, but, you know, somehow use our funds to help our resource officer or help other areas. So I agree with that. I did want to touch on what you said about serving beverages during the events, and you're looking at me crazy.
No.
But it's
No,
it's done in many cities.
Three votes up here change it. I just
Okay.
want to get you all the information. If you decide 3 votes to change it, again, we'll get you information for our liability carrier and the possibilities of what that might cause if it's covered. There's a lot of shortfalls, but I'd be glad to give you all the information. 3 votes will decide what goes on out there, but I just want you to see everything
it's
first.
just done in other cities and, of course, cultural centers, and it's not, somehow they deal with it. Most of the people who come to, you know, plays here or musicals are seniors. They're, I think, going to be causing that much trouble. But, yeah, I'd like to see what other cities are doing and compare, because that could be an extra way to make some money here, and I think it would be a good asset.
Yeah.
So I can't think of anything else right now. Thanks.
Mr. LaCourage, when you prepare that information to give us, make sure you let us know what the possible revenue will be, and what expenses will be, and what the liabilities for that.
You do most of those. I don't know how.
Huh?
I'll have to see if Diane can gauge the drinkers in her audience and stuff. So,
Well, the expenses would be overcome by the revenue, so I think it would be a money-making situation. Just have to look into the licensing.
Okay, now we're going to enterprise funds. Commissioner Carr, you want to start?
You know, I don't have a whole lot of questions.
You don't have
on
any
enterprise
questions for
funds.
that? Commissioner Sieber?
I'm good.
Well, I got a couple of things to say about that. Our enterprise funds are very healthy. Our sewer department has increased $1.9 million, which is 11.89%. That's very good. There's, on slide number 24, there's a question that I'd like to ask. Mr. Herrick, it says the debt service is $2,041,000. Can you tell me what that is?
The water plant,
Huh?
$2,044,000. It's a water plant debt between the principal and interest.
Okay. So this is something that okay, explain to that a little bit more.
You want the principal portion and the interest portion of the debt for the water plant? We have about 27 years left on that debt on the water plant.
So this is what's costing us every year, $2 million every year.
Yeah, the $2,044,000 every year.
Thank you. The sanitation fund I have no questions with that. The stormwater fund has decreased by $1,055,000?
$658,000.
Yeah, $658,000. Why why you had the decrease on that?
Well, they had some projects budgeted the previous fiscal year, 2018. They didn't get to them. I think it's mostly the bowl over there, Penn Street. I think they're waiting on the grant funding, and I believe that's going to be coming up. I'm not sure if it's this year or next year. I could try, but you might.
Good evening. Sorry Mr. Function couldn't be here today. He had a death in his family. I'm standing in for him. Hopefully answer your questions thoroughly. That was kind of an interesting year. We finally procured 3 cooperative funding projects from SwiftMud, which pays us, in essence, they match funds up to 50% of a certain amount. The Penn project was, I guess, in the works for years. Probably the largest project, definitely the largest project in the last 5, and maybe going back, I know Bob Rock was been working about that. One of the first things we spoke about when I got here, so it goes way back. So those funds are coming in. Once we start construction, October or late 2018 for the Penn project, we will be reimbursed for our design fees. And then that'll carry on as well for the Palm Avenue and the GIS as we move forward. The other thing in our budget talks with Ron and Tom and our stormwater engineer, some of the projects we felt could be backed off if in time move forward to 2021-22 because of the importance. We did not want to lose the grant funding, close to $1 million, and $1 million saved is a pretty good thing. So we kind of moved some scheduling back, and it just so happens we have that apparent decrease.
Ron, we haven't seen any information on the golf course in Marina. Do you have it?
I can grab the detail book and go over that if you want.
Is any, I know we did a lot of improvements on the golf course, but do we have any concerns for next year?
Basically, the revenues are meeting the expenditures for next year, yes. And we're trying to reduce the interfund transfer to try to help out that fund to keep it on an even scale. So, like I say, so the revenues are going to be offsetting the expenditures. We're trying to limit the capital because then, as you know, the golf course is in the negatives fund balance wise, but like I say, operationally wise, it's keeping on the plus side.
We also have a loan there that for the water department.
There's a loan. I think it's a couple $100,000 they're still paying back.
What about the marina?
Marina, a lot smaller fund. They're doing a little bit better this year. I think we budget right around 90,000. So I think they're doing a little bit more slip rentals this year. So I've seen the revenues going up this year. But it's a fund. It's like an $90,000 budget fund for the marina.
Okay. Does that pay for itself, or we have to?
I'm sorry.
Does it pay for itself?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
Vice Mayor Panther.
No questions. Thank you.
Commissioner Kick.
Yes, thank you. I just had some questions on the golf course as well. It was about the loan that we're paying. Is it $40,000 a year they're paying back on the loan?
Yeah, it's a separate, as part of the fees, there's a CIP surcharge when the golfers play. It's a smaller fee, but yes, it usually runs about $40,000. That accumulates in that CIP surcharge revenue. At the end of the year, we take that and pay back the loan based on that.
Right. Do you know how much is still owed on that? It's over 200,000?
Yeah, I think it's a little over 200,000.
Okay. My other question is Howard, where's Howard? There he is. I see that, we're paying to lease our golf carts. It's like 63,000 or so a year. I mean, is it feasible? What would it cost for us to purchase golf carts? And then my other question is going to be, we talked about expanding the snack shop. Do we have funds for that?
Somewhere in some years coming up, maybe in the penny money.
Okay, so leasing versus owning your golf carts. A golf cart costs about $5,000. We have 75 of those. So I don't have the math in my head. Didn't know we were going to talk about owning the golf carts. What is that?
A lot of money.
Okay, so that's $375,000. So if we wanted to own our golf course, obviously we would have to go purchase a fleet. Okay, now typically electric golf cart lasts you about 3 years with the batteries. Okay, especially with the amount of use we get out of them, the amount of play we get. So after 3 years, you have to replace the batteries. Batteries cost you about $500 to $600 a cart. So when we lease, we can lease a golf cart, as you said, for $63,000 a year. At the end of the 3 years, we turn them back in. We get a new fleet. Okay. If we go purchase golf carts, to make that pay off in the long run, you're going to have to run them for about 5 to 6 years. Okay, now if you can get a 5 to 6 year life out of a golf cart, then owning it probably will make sense because you'll be able to pay it off. But you're going to have the repair expense of new batteries, tires, etc. Leasing, we don't have any of that issue. So if you've got the staff, if you've got maintenance in place to be able to take care of the golf carts for 5 or 6 years, then owning them might be a viable option and maybe a little bit cheaper. But we don't have that kind of staff at the golf course. We don't have a full-time repairman to look after golf carts. So, we would have to have help with that. But for us, it's much easier to be able to turn them back in after 3 years. We don't have to worry about the batteries. We don't have to worry about any other. And our maintenance on our golf course is only about $2,500 a year. It's what we budget, and we usually don't even spend that. But that's because we keep a fresh fleet.
Okay. So what we're doing, I think, is our best option right now. Thank you.
In the short term, it really is.
Right.
And it keeps our cars new. Customer comes up, he likes to get in a relatively new golf cart. You drive a golf cart for 5 years over the golf course, it's not going to look very new.
You beat
so.
up. Okay. And what about the snack shop?
Well, we're looking at some improvements to do with that. We had a little meeting with the is that the rec board? I think it was the recreation board, and they gave us some recommendations of things that we can do to kind of spruce things up. So we've taken those recommendations into account, and we're going to move forward with some of those things. A major overhaul, though, for the snack shop, that's going to have to be way kind of down the road. As you know, we got to repay our loan that we did our greens with. I think part of that loan was the greens renovation in 2014, a new cart barn. That was before me, Paul. Do you know when the cart barn was built? I think that was 2012 maybe or something like that.
5 or 6 years ago.
Yeah. So that's all in that what'd you say, Ron, 200,000? Yeah. So we kind of need to get that paid off somewhat before I think we go into any kind of major renovation.
Okay.
Not that it's not needed, but I think we
Well, golf course is going it's gone such a great direction. It's just, people want to play here now. So I just want to make sure that.
Yeah. And I think if we continue on that track, we'll get there.
Yeah. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Thank you. We are now going
Mayor,
to the.
I'm sorry, I've
go
got
ahead.
one. I'm sorry,
sure.
I forgot to ask this question.
Sure.
Recycling falls into this category. I'm not sure if you all are avid recyclers, but typically my recycling is falling out of my bin when I take it to the road. I don't know if there's an opportunity to look at increasing the size of our bins or getting a larger bin. I know some other cities have looked at actually using cans instead of like a bin to encourage more recycling. It's easier for the residents to roll it out instead of tripping over the bin or backing over the bin when you're leaving out of your driveway also. So if I could encourage us to look into something with waste management, what we can do to make that better.
Okay.
Thanks.
We are now going to the CIP, Capital Improvement Projects. Vice Mayor.
Thank you. I'll go to the little sheet that I had. Okay, this is on the stuff that's on page 21. Well, the stuff that's unfunded. I guess these are stuff you have on your radar, right? I definitely support. When I say support, I'm not saying put it in the budget, but just as we allow. The security cameras, I think, are crucial both for the citywide parks and the public works. I think anywhere where we get surveillance that is appropriate and allowed by law, of course, and obviously have our dispatch center having monitor those feeds is wise, especially in the parks with the issues that we're facing.
Yeah, one of the reasons why that was pulled out of the budget is I want to look at a more comprehensive camera system for our city properties, our parks, our restroom, city buildings, downtown. And so that was one of the things pulled out because I want to work those little pieces into a bigger plan to bring back to you and stuff. And that's why that's on there, because I want to increase the scope of it, because I really think that's a thing that could solve a lot of our problems in the future. And dealing with it, damage to city, it could be a saver in the future. And we've talked about it for a long time. And so that's going to come back as part of a bigger project to you.
And Station 70 bathrooms, I know we had looked into, I know we lost that property that we were going to rebuild that or build the new station on, but that's something, if feasible, I think we should do. And then I have brought this up before, the strength machines or the rec center. Just anything we can to provide more of that or improve them, to give people that can't afford a gym membership an option for real weight training. Do we stop doing I don't think we did the Mayor's Fitness Challenge, have we? Mayor, have we done that? I don't know. I mean, I'm no pillar of fitness, but I think that, it might be nice to do that again in the fall. I think residents like that, and
Actually, had no participation.
we did it. I thought people lined up for that.
At the beginning, that
We tried it doing them.
Oh, that's right. Do we have a health fair though? Is that what was popular? Yeah. Okay, so we're going to do that again.
Yes,
Okay.
yeah.
All right. Well, that's good enough then.
And maybe some more fitness events coming up in the next, because that seems to be the theme. So that may be one of the things we look at for city events, some type of that theme, involving, now that we are getting yoga studios, fitness, things all over the town and stuff, to involve all them into some fitness, maybe events and stuff for the upcoming year.
Okay, that makes sense. Lastly, almost lastly, why'd you put on here the City of Tarpon Springs public TV station? Are we going to lose our rights to broadcast?
No. And again, Suzanne's not here, but I'm gonna bring. We are one major part breaking from that TV station that for putting down our TV station. We have an antiquated system. We've been told we cannot get parts for it and stuff. So we have to look in some scope, and we're investigating it more. That's going to have to be plugged in somewhere into the budget, because one of the major components of that goes wrong now. We have no TV station.
So you're saying so this isn't like what Dunedin has. This is, you're saying our existing equipment to broadcast on cable. If it breaks, we're done.
We've about ended the things of being able to get parts, being able to fix and stuff. So we are still looking at that. But I think that's something we're gonna have to plug in somewhere, because obviously we do have some people from the calls I get after the meeting that do watch the meetings. We can't have that go down, but we're still in the investigative stage for that. But that's kind of one of the ones sitting out there that I can almost assure you that's going to have to go back somewhere into the budget, either cutting, moving another project, or doing something. Because again, I just don't think we've got so many people used to it. We're also looking at within that is, for instance, with our meetings, with this meeting here, we had a meeting that's upstairs, Board of Adjustments. We're also looking at a prospect of the room that's up there where Ron so kindly going to take his stuff and is going out of there. We're also thinking of a little room right next up there that when we do this change, that could be a televised room for different meetings, or if we go up there for a meeting or something to tell, like we couldn't do the workshop, with it right accessible, that we bring it in and not only have the new system for here, but have a satellite system, so you'd have a room big enough where you could do the second meeting and have it. For instance, the workshop would have been a good meeting to have televised for the residents.
That's what Oldsmar does in their new.
So that's all in that thing that we're looking at and probably going to bring back to you and need. Now that we have the availability up there,
as long as it's not
that.
Creating, because I was like, I do not want to create a TV station.
No,
obviously.
This is so we can operate a system, because our system is very old, antiquated, and now we can't get parts. And
I do want to maintain that for our residents that watch that. However, I would encourage us to track metrics, because there's going to come a point in time where that's not going to be feasible. And our IT department has done a great job with live stream, and that's where things need to go, because almost everybody has a cell phone. So that's fine. Okay, I thought you were doing that. And also, I kind of put a tangent out there. Is it's not on here. It's just, I know I don't want to have a radio station. We don't need a full-time radio station here again, but we need capabilities for a storm. So I think that needs to be. I'm not sure. I mean, all I have is my ham radio license. I'm not sure what it would take for to us to have rights to I mean, it wouldn't be too much to be able to broadcast the range of the city, to have access to some AM frequency during a storm. We could tell residents to tune in to that station for updates. So
Do we already have one?
it's dead or whatever.
Yeah.
We
can look at that.
Our FCIC or our FCC license, whatever, is probably expired too on that. So I think that needs to be looked at, but only for emergencies, not for daily use.
Okay.
And then lastly, this kind of falls under here. Could you repeat what you told me the status of the old city hall refurbishment, and not the window issue, but the status of painting and all that stuff?
It's all the scope. The scope is being written to go out to bid, and I want to start on that as soon as possible.
You think this fall we'll see work on that?
Oh yeah, we got to get going because I say
It's looking bad.
Yeah.
So, all right.
The whole everything, we're doing everything together and getting it done. And Bob Robertson's working with to have the scope and get it out to bid as soon as possible and go, because that's the project I want to start as soon as humanly possible. So.
All right. Thank you. That's all, Mayor.
Thank you. Commissioner Carr? Had some,
Yeah, I've got some comments. Thank you, Mayor. I would like to echo what Vice Mayor has talked about with the security cameras. I do completely support that as well in the public areas where we do typically have some issues around town. So thank you for bringing that up, Vice Mayor. There's a few things in the capital budget that I'd like to point out and also express my supporting for is additional paving and sidewalk budgets. There's a lot of areas in town that need help for sidewalks to be added or replaced, and there's definitely some roads that we need to address as well. I know that we have a standard recurring budget every year, and we've got some additional funds this year, so I'm excited to see that, and I know the residents will be excited about that as well. Secondly, also the improvements to Sunset Beach, looking at parking, looking at the bathrooms, and looking at some of the areas we've talked about in the past during our other workshops. I'm excited to see that come to fruition as well. So thank you for including that in this budget. There are a few things that I would like to talk about. I know there's some unassigned funds. There's potentially another $392,000 for the bike trail that might not be done this year, and there's also the $300,000 in the breathing apparatuses that we potentially could get a grant for. So that comes out to be about $949,000. So here's just a couple other ideas that I'd like to just bring up. One thing that wasn't talked about was Whitcomb Bayou improvements along South Spring Boulevard. I know we've had some discussions. It's been a couple years now that discussions have been going on about the rocks that need to be addressed, the lack of sidewalks, and somehow extending the larger sidewalks around the bayou to encourage safer recreation for everybody that travels that area. I would like to see that potentially added. I know you've mentioned that we need to talk with Bob about some options that are available, so I'm looking forward to learning more about those. But there's an opportunity for at least getting some designs in this year, and taking a next step forward would be good. Another thing that we talked about in a public workshop with the commission was the signage around the public buildings and the parks. We're starting to see a lot of those fall apart and rot away, and I believe you mentioned that that is included, but I just want to confirm with you that that is included in one of the budget
Yes,
lines.
and we will check and look at the numbers again if we need to increase that a little bit. We'll look at that we'll look at that. That may be a place we need to increase.
Okay. One of the things I've gotten complaints about too, from a recreation standpoint, is at the boat dock at Craig Park. When you've got multiple boats coming in there, the floating dock. It's a great asset to have, but it's too small. It needs to be wider, is what I'm hearing from a lot of different people. So if there is some funds to extend that out, I know there's already the davit's already there for the extension. If we could just add some additional.
Small as means
like it needs to be
larger for capacity.
wider. Yeah, it needs to not towards the, what do you call that?
Ramp.
Not towards the ramp, but the other direction. So, and then if there's an opportunity to do a kayak launch or paddleboard launch in that area too, that would be helpful, because it was kind of a mess during 4th of July when I was watching the kayakers and the paddleboarders and people dropping their boats in there at the same time.
That ramp was not made for kayakers or
Dangerous.
paddleboarders at all. That was for regular motorized boats. Just so you know, because that was one of my projects there. I wanted, something there. I didn't necessarily agree with what's put there because it is small, but they did take the cleats off of the seawall. So now you can't even tie up to the seawall if you want to. People are tying up to trees and stuff out there, which is absolutely ridiculous. So I have asked before if we could put the cleats back at least, if we don't extend the dock, at least put some cleats out, and that I think, would help quite a bit.
Okay.
Just sorry.
Don't be sorry. No, I chime in on yours often, so feel free to return the favor.
Well, and like I said, I just wanted to stress that was definitely not made for kayakers to use or the dragon.
Yeah, there might be an opportunity, like in the south side of the ramp, to make an area for kayakers or paddleboards to drop in there. But again, there's issues with the rocks and the boulders, right?
Why they can't go
And then there's also, but I'm confident we could look at something and come up with a great solution. The last one I want to bring up is pertaining to a way to maybe address some of the budget cuts we're going to be seeing in the near future. In looking at solar power and looking at, I don't know what our bills are for our city hall or what our bills are for the libraries or what our high utilizers are. And I know Paul and his team are looking at items for the water plant for the use of solar. So if there's an opportunity to get something in the budget for solar use that would help us reduce the power bills in years to come and to help offset that budget aspect, I think that would be a good idea to look at moving forward. And focus on the high utilizers, not necessarily like a small building that doesn't use a whole lot of electricity. But like I said, I'm sure we could poll those power bills and see which ones are the highest. Just run through here real quick. And also, I'm happy to see that the entrance signs, we're working on the gateway signs also. So thank you for listening to us in the workshops that we've had over the past year and moving forward and making sure we're taking a step forward with beautification efforts as well.
Yeah, I got along, and by the way, that the item on there on the proposed, I think we really need that I'm going to need that $40,000 that I have down there for additional beautification. There's room for it in the budget without hurting anything else. So that's why that's in. It's not. This was an idea I knew was going to come up here from the workshop that we all had and description and stuff. So I fully plan without objection that's definitely one that's going to be added into this budget because I'm going to need it for the overwatch, for lights, for the different things we're going to be doing. We've got other sources. Obviously, we sold the building in the CRA, so we've got additional CRA money. So a lot of the projects where we need funding for this kind of thing, we've got the new availability. Plus, with it going up, the property tax going up in the CRA, there's extra money. So I'm not even concerned about the CRA and the money available to do those beautifications. But for the other areas and stuff, that's where this area, and we've got several places in there to do a lot of the things and make the long list. And, we'll be talking about it again probably the next time we do a workshop, the long list and which ones we're going to start to do. So we've got multiple sources in this budget to work on all of the things that we talked about in the workshop for beautification of our fields, our signs, lighting, all those different things that both the Sponge Docks downtown and other areas and stuff. So this budget does allow that and allows us to do enough work that'll get us through the whole year to start moving towards accomplishing what you want to accomplish in beautification.
Thanks. I have no further comments.
Yes, I agree with all these items here, and also what Vice Mayor Banther said, all the points that you brought up. I'm not going to repeat all that. To add to what Commissioner Carr said, I know that Bob's been working on South Spring, and we've looked at ideas. It's become even worse during the summer with the boat traffic, and I have residents complaining to me that the trailers are parked on all the streets down there, and sometimes even in front of their driveways where they can't get out because there are so many boats, and we don't have enough parking for boat trailers. They used to use Ed Hoffman's property, but I don't know what we can do to
probably coming to you soon. It's a sacred cow, and I'm going to bring it, but Tom has had on the shelf. Of course, he's afraid to try to get people. There is a plan on the shelves, and I'll be sharing it with you just to share you. Be aware. People will be coming at you, touching Craig Park, but there is a plan to increase and help the boat park and to keep those trailers off that involves the shuffleboard courts and those
Right.
areas where the wall is in reverse, it's sitting there. It's going to be controversial and people are going to be angry, but like you say, we've seen with some of the parking on the streets, we're just going to have to weigh that. But that's something for the future, and that plan is there, so that's something to talk about at a later time. But
Yeah,
it's
because
going to be
the way
it's going to
people
be
are parking
very interesting
everywhere.
meeting.
Tom's had that idea for quite a while. We've
I know,
discussed it for years.
but, you know, there comes a point where we need to
You just
like
need to do
start doing something. So I think we need to look at this. Because residents you can't drive 2 cars down Pineapple or, you know, some of these other streets because of the boat trailers and South Spring. If you have a pedestrian,
I hear
and a
people saying, so
bicyclist,
we'll
and a
bring it
boat and a
sooner.
car, something's going to happen.
There's money within this. That's not a major cost and a major part of the project. The cost.
We talked
It may
even
be a
about
cost and aggravation, but it's not going to be a major cost. So we can bring that sooner towards you to just to look at conceptually and then hear what the public has to say.
We talked even about widening the ramp. I know that you talked about extending the dock, but even widening the ramp there so that it's just so congested in that area. So that's a thought too that I wanted to bring up. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm not going to repeat everything that was said.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, go ahead. That's fine. Go ahead. That's fine.
Sorry. I'm in the middle of writing something and I'm sorry. Can I just talk about the shuffleboard courts again? You know, we've been discussing this for quite some time because, you know, I was using the ramp a lot and I am an avid boater. I now have my boat stored, so, you know, but it's an issue down there. The traffic, or ever since they put the stone along the street there, you can't park along the streets. Everybody's parking on the side streets now. So it is an issue.
Well, I don't think they're ever supposed to park there, but.
Well, anyway, I know they weren't, but we did.
Yeah.
So it's taken away. So the shuffleboard courts, I had spoken with Tom about this, is possibly if this is such an issue that we don't even use them. So I don't know why it's an issue.
It's not the issue of losing the shuffleboard court.
Well, because we would have to move. I said, how about we move the shuffleboard courts over to the fitness park that we have? I mean, if that's what the issue is,
That's not the issue. People want pristine. If you do anything at Craig Park, you better be putting grass or something green and not putting sunlight down. The issue is not the shuffle. No one uses. I'd put them somewhere else, but nobody uses them. That's not the issue. People think that should be a passive, pristine park, and the thought of adding anything like parking or something has set people off for years.
well, we don't need to put that in their head. So we're just going to say, this is what we're proposing. I think it's only going to add, from what I remember, maybe 10 parking spots for boat trailers, because we, had it plans drawn out. I had somebody draw the plan out and everything. So it's not that it's adding, but 10 is better than nothing.
That's pretty big for most of the days down there. That's pretty
Right.
big.
And then we talked about moving the,
Flipping the wall.
right. So again, this has been going on for years. It just hasn't been done yet. And I think honestly, it needs to, because if I lived in that area, I would be up here complaining every weekend I really would. I don't know if it's just, this is a boating community, so we need to work on that. And that was the other thing why we fixed the ramp at Sunset Beach, to help with that issue as well. But again, this is the boating community. So, and people come from other places to launch here. So, sorry.
Okay. I'm not going to repeat all the same stuff. But on page 17, the extended Pinellas Trail on North Anklet, we budgeted $391,000. Mark, can you tell us about that?
It was an obligation that we have to do for Anklet Nature Park. It's committed in when we took over the park, it's committed to do. Why you've seen that in the budget for the last 5 years is because we have an eagle's nest that's right in the path that doesn't allow us to do it. And until that resolves, or we can get a piece of land to go around it or something, it's stalled. We cannot take it out of our budget because it's an obligation. I forget who's the obligation to, but a governmental obligation that we put that through. So we have to leave it in the budget. But right now, the eagle's nest inhibits our ability to do that on the path that we did. And again, unless there's another piece of land or to go around this stuff, we're going to have, until that nest becomes dormant or otherwise, we keep having to wait for the opportunity to do that. Bob is working. There are some land possibilities of that. There are some possible land opportunities to reroute it. That's what we're working on. So that's why we're kind of leaving it there. It's probably going to go to the next year, but we are looking at some possibilities of a different route. But we are obligated to do that. So we keep telling people we got it in the budget. And again, the Eagle's Nest, they cannot come at us for not doing it because obviously they're not going to tell us to go through and disturb an Eagle's Nest. So it's just one of those that you've seen that for probably 5 years in the budget. So hopefully we're going to complete it. It's on my bucket list, so hopefully we'll complete it while I'm here.
Okay. On page 18, the improvements for the recreation areas, I support that 100%. It's something that we really need. I've been getting a lot of phone calls for different kids to play or in different places. So, yeah. On the same page, down on the bottom, stormwater action plan. I know Mr. Robinson had created that a few years in the past. Do we have a list of all the projects that it's involved at? Can you share that with us sometime whenever you get a chance?
Wait, you just want him to, because he got that list.
You got the list now?
No, but he can tell you about the list, and we can get a copy of it to you.
Yeah, just real quick, the Stormwater Action Plan projects are updated periodically, and the most recent one is on the website. I did notice that, so that you can get it on the city's website.
Okay.
And I'd be happy to email it to you directly, too, if you want.
All right.
Yeah. Email it to all of them.
That works out very well. Thank you. But now, next page is the number 19. I know we're doing a lot of water plants, water plant improvements, 1,695,000. Is that we're going to need more wear fills, or are we getting? Bob, can you please come forward? I didn't.
The mayor's up, so why don't you just stay down here and stay down here?
Yeah, might as well.
Well, I thought I was going to miss my workout tonight, but
Yeah.
I didn't. Water wells, yeah, there's 3 new wells that are going to be drilled. That's a shovel-ready project. 3 wells that are designed and permitted, ready to go for the new fiscal year.
Yeah. What's our goal? What, 23, 25?
We have 22 that are allowed to be drilled in the permit, so that's our goal. This would give us 17, 18, and 19.
We're getting close then, huh?
Yeah, we are.
Okay. Don't go away.
Okay, I'll stay right here.
Thank you. As you know, that we have many sensitive areas, and there's still all these houses that still have septic tanks, and many places we have to look and see if we can install sewer lines. Is there a possibility that we can create a action plan on the places that, in all the projects that we're working on with the sewer lines, just like you do with the water, or just like you do with the?
Sure, that can be
I
done.
believe we have that.
We do have the.
I know Seabreeze is the next on the list coming up, so.
Right.
We can update that. I think it's due for an update. I think we need to update it, but.
Is East Tarpon completed?
Lake Tarpon, yes. That project is waiting for DEP clearance to get, we can start getting people hooked up.
We're into the last phase.
Yep.
Okay.
And as you see, the engineering for Seabreeze is in that, on that page that you had.
The water meter change out, we budget 125,000 as we do every year. Are we getting close to finish with our project?
Bob, you're on such a roll there. We're about 60 to 70% complete with that. What's taking some time with that project, we're completing it in-house. You know, some places will actually contract out a company to come in and do it in a shorter amount of time, but it's a multi-million-dollar way to go. We feel like this is working well for us. We're making good progress, but we are taking some time to get it done. We've already seen some real benefits from having these meters installed, and we're planning to continue moving forward with it.
Thank you. Mr. Licouris, if you please extend my thanks to the employees. We do many projects in-house. We save a lot of money, and I think that they need to be commended for that.
Thank you.
So we finished all the sections of the budget. Do we have any other comments, questions?
Oh, I do.
Yeah.
Thank you. There was, I had gotten a request, and I don't know if we can accommodate or not. It's at Craig Park, and this has to do with the rec department, Craig, from the dance group, that that practices and everything in our main, in the rec center, but they also, I guess, use the room over at Craig Park sometimes. They were asking about the flooring. I don't know if we have extra flooring anywhere or whatever, if we could do something with the flooring in there. I just throwing it out there.
Well, we'll look at it, but again, we got a lot of other uses there, and we put the flopsy floor, whatever you call it, over at the rec center.
Yeah, they love the floor at the rec center.
They should for what it costs.
Brand new floor, it's
Yeah.
nice.
They should.
I'm not asking for that floor out there, but if there's something we could do with the flooring, so I don't know. I
Okay.
told her, we said maybe we had extra floors in somewhere, I don't know. So anyway, that was just,
Craig is happy you asked a question about dance, so.
and I'm happy to see it. We just looked at last night, it was in our backup last night, and, it's a great idea. It's a win-win for us and for the dance group, and we're making money, they're making money, and the children are learning to dance, and it's a competition. It's bringing people to the community. I think that was a great collaborative effort in both parts, and I thank you for that. Thank you.
I just want to echo that because, you all are doing a great job there, and it's been a great partnership with Just Dance Academy. They appreciate it. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Well, that concludes the budget work session, and before I adjourn, I want to thank everyone that's been involved with the budget this year. It's adjourned at 8:45 p.m.
Tomorrow I have an old neighbor, friend, whatever, meeting me at 6:30 for all his complaints. I have no knowledge.
I was supposed to be
I was gonna
somewhere
rush
at
it
8,
down.
but
You told me that's under a purview was not.
I kind of thought I wasn't going to make it.
18th time with the people in the league. The vice president is the liaison